All right, welcome back to another episode of Three Dudes, One Hoop. As always, I'm Mike, and I'm here with Easy and Benny. We have a really fun concept for you guys today. This is coming off the heels of our season preview podcast. So if you haven't listened to that yet, please do so, where we break down our awards predictions and our playoff predictions as well as finals. But coming off the heels of that, we wanted to talk about takes we had that we just weren't brave enough to give during those two episodes. So takes that, the minimum threshold is like a 1% belief. So like we have to think that there's even a 1% chance that these might happen. So they're just super hot takes that we don't want to attach any credibility to. We don't want to be liable for them in any way. So big disclaimer, if you're gonna bet on them, don't come crying to us that you lost money. But
We're not
uh
financial
we're
advisors.
not yeah.
And also now this is on YouTube. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of clips that can be taken from this. So we might have to private this video later
Yeah,
or
if there's any lawsuits against us, then this will definitely be used against us in a court of law. So yeah, so we're each gonna give three flaming hot takes. This is too hot for work. Don't listen to this podcast at work. It's not appropriate. Don't don't bet any money on this, all right? So that being said, like I said, we're gonna do three takes each. We're gonna do round robin style, starting with Benny, and at the end of the podcast, we're gonna talk about players that we haven't given up on yet. So this is a different topic. It's players, one or two players that some of the league has given up on. They're barely hanging on. Or they're just players that don't have a lot of hype around them that we still really believe in that could be really good in the right situation and whatnot. So that being said, I think we're going to start with our takes, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Benny.
okay. The first one that I have thought of is that I could see Philadelphia 76ers in the play-in, so anywhere from 7 to 10 in the Eastern Conference this season.
Ooh, okay, and that's good coming off the heels of what we were talking about in the last pod. So why do you have them?
Yeah.
So like, what do you think is going to happen or could happen?
I had them I think 6 in our preview pod. So I guess I wasn't far off from where I could see them. Like they could finish 7th and then they're technically a
Hmm.
playing team, right? But the biggest one that I talked about and I mentioned it to you, Mike, when you had them second was the whole Ben Simmons problem. I don't see them I don't see Daryl Morey wanting to settle for just anything and for that guy. And I don't see anybody giving up a real haul for that guy right now either. And I think there's going to be a lot of tension in that locker room that is Doc Rivers is not going to be able to handle it. And the biggest reason why Doc Rivers is not going to be able to handle it is because his best player, Joel Embiid, came out like last week and he said, I actually have it here in front of me. He just completely called out Ben Simmons and he has the entire locker room against Ben Simmons, who's could arguably be their second best player, right? His stock is low, but we could say he's the second most talented player on that roster. He's someone that in the right headspace could be a very good contributor for that team and that has championship expectations. But he comes out and he says that it was surprising to see. We'll say that even going back, he starts naming off all these moves that the 76ers did specifically for Ben Simmons. So bringing in Horford, stretch big, supposed to be a stretch big, getting rid of Jimmy Butler so Ben can have the ball more. Joel Embiid himself even saying that he had to step off to the 3-point line, which he said he was fine with, but he had to do it anyway, basically for the sake of Ben. And then he starts naming off all these shooters that they brought in. He says Seth Curry, who's one of the best 3-point shooters, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, who they re-signed, Forcom, who's a good shooter as well, Shake Milton. And he starts naming off all these guys that they brought in. So he's turning the whole locker room. He's getting all these guys against Ben Simmons as well.
Yeah, I think
Even if
Doc
that's
took
not
all
his
this
intention.
personally.
Yeah, even if that's not Joel Embiid's intention, it's what's happening here is he has his entire locker room turned against Ben Simmons. There's no fixing this relationship in my opinion. I think he has to go, but he even called him borderline disrespectful, at least a situation, right? The report of Ben Simmons wanting a trade, not wanting to talk to Philly. Joel Embiid said that is disrespectful. And he says it's disrespectful to the guy. He says he's focused on the guys that are here and that want to be here, that the situation is disappointing. And there's a lot of guys on this roster that are playing to survive. It might sound a little dramatic, but these were Embiid's words about how, these guys have the focus in mind of winning. And Ben Simmons just, he's basically saying that Ben Simmons is taking a shit on all of that because his feelings are hurt or whatever. And I could just see all this turmoil not ending soon because of the fact that, like I was saying before, that I don't think he's going to be able to get traded so soon. It's going to take a while for Daryl Morey to kind of swallow it up a bit. And it's just going to negatively affect the season and the 76ers.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know how I feel. These are my Philadelphia 76ers. Where Joel Embiid's gonna win MVP, and they're gonna finish number 2 overall. So it's definitely a very hot take for me. You can reference back to the last podcast. I'm very high on them this year. But Easy, do you have any reactions to that take?
So I mean, I don't know if there's a world where they go as low as 7. Like, to me, that's such a hard thing to quantify, considering that I actually like the roster around Joel Embiid that they hypothetically built for Ben Simmons. Like,
Right.
just in the way that it helps Ben Simmons to have a bunch of shooters, it helps Joel Embiid to have a bunch of shooters too. Because if he's complaining that he's going to have to stretch the floor by shooting threes for Ben Simmons, if he's in the paint, that means he needs shooters. And guess what he has right now? Shooters. So I guess it's like, I don't know if I could see them as low as 7. Maybe they're 6 just because like it's an adjustment. I just have a very hard time believing that like a Doc Rivers team could struggle that much in the regular season. And again, these are hot takes. So like, I don't blame you for thinking they could go as low as 7. Honestly, a season like this could go either way. Like, we've seen teams that are supposed to be great end up being completely horrendous. Like, so I mean, do I agree? No, because I'm kind of more
I don't
like
think anyone's
Leyva.
gonna agree with
Right, but
anything
like
that
I'm
was
saying,
said.
because I'm more of the thought that like Leva said, that like I think Philly has already accepted the fact he'll never play for them ever again, and they've like planned for that in a way. But yeah, no, I mean, if Philly ends up 7th, I think at that point, they, like you said, there's a bunch of guys that are fighting for the roster spot. I mean, they won't even have a job if they don't make it beyond the 7th seed. At least most of those guys on that team. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Philly's gonna make or break a lot of like predictions that we have this year. It's a super interesting team to watch for, and I can definitely see Ben Simmons nuking the whole thing. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely a hot take for sure.
And
It's a hot take.
he has to, it's not like he can just, like, I was thinking maybe like the ideal world for this to be a seamless transition from Ben away from the team is if, if he's allowed to sit out from the team, he just trains on his own time with his own guys and he just isn't even in the building. But that's not going to be the case, right? Because isn't there this whole thing where he's going to be getting fined, or he
already
got
started
fined,
getting
I
money.
think,
Exactly. So he's gonna
300K or 300K.
exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. So, and it's just
Yeah.
going to keep getting higher and higher. At least
Yeah.
probably what the NBA is going to be doing, because they don't want this. So he's going to have to come back, right? If he's not traded.
I don't think he'll get
Probably.
fined. I think it's more of like the team just won't pay him.
No, he's already been fined. He's already been
right.
fined
But I'm saying that, for
$360.
example, like there was an 8 mil that he was gonna get once he started the season with the team, I'm pretty sure. And now it's on escrow with the team.
Oh,
Meaning
yeah,
that,
right.
yeah. So meaning that money, like it could be his if he showed up. He's just doesn't want to show up.
He's just not.
So
not
I mean,
reporting.
it's up to him, and the more games he doesn't play, the more times he's not going to get paid, and it really is up to him how much he's comfortable with that thought. I think Daryl Morey is going to feel the heat. I think that Daryl Morey's not going to like it, but at the end of the day, you're competing for championships if you're Philly, hypothetically, because now you're not worried about Ben now. You're worried about Joel Embiid now. You need to make sure whatever that guy wants, you better do it. Because if you hypothetically, or not you, but if the organization, because Daryl Morey wasn't there before, if the organization was designed around Ben Simmons initially, you better design it around Joel Embiid this time. Because if you don't, that guy's walking the next time his contract's up. And maybe that's what they need 5 years from now, but that's not what they need right now. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, a lot is hanging in the balance with what they can get for Ben Simmons too. So that's something to watch out for. But I like the take. It's good. I think we'll move on to my take, which is pretty spicy here. So so my take has to do with a team out west that we've clowned on a lot. And I think there's a certain something. I think there's like maybe even a little bit better than a 1% chance that this team finishes
Say it, coward.
5th in the West. I'm going with the Sacramento Kings finishing 5th in the West this year. Betty's got enough. He took off his headset. Can't hear what I'm saying. There we go. So Sacramento, the more that I stare at their roster, the more that I like it. And if it wasn't Sacramento, if you take those players and you put them in a different jersey, I think they're probably a little bit higher on people's.
Because they're playing with better teams.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you take the same team and put them
Oh, the same.
put them
Okay.
in Seattle or whatever, you know what I mean? People are hyping it up, but here's basically why. Okay, they have three guys that I think, and this is like a take that this is even lower on the take totem pole of takes I believe in, but they have three guys that could probably win, make the jump and maybe win most improved this year. They have De'Aaron Fox, they have Tyrese Halliburton, and Marvin Bagley. Three guys that I think are poised to be really good this year. They have Davion Mitchell, who they drafted 9th overall, who like there was buzz about him being like a top 6, 7 prospect overall in the class. Like even just a few days prior to the draft. So I really like him. He's like a point of attack defender on the ball. I think he can be like an immediate impact player. We know what Harrison Barnes can do. Harrison Barnes is like sneakily super underrated the past couple of years. He's shot like 40% from the 3-point line, really high efficiency from the field. They have shooters everywhere in this roster. You guys know how I feel about Buddy Hield. I love Buddy. Very efficient, very volume heavy, but efficient 3-point shooter. And they have decent bigs. I mean, Rashawn Holmes. They have Tristan Thompson, who I may talk about at the end of this podcast in our next segment, who I think, at 20 minutes a game is going to give you good depth. So honestly, like the more I talk about this take, the more I like it. So yeah, that's probably my hottest take. And that is the Sacramento Kings. Yeah, you heard that right, people at home. Sacramento Kings finishing 5th out west. I didn't even have them in my top 8.
What are your what are your
Yeah.
yours? Okay, so what's your 5 through 8 then in the Western Conference from the last episode? Do you remember?
Ah man, let me check real
I
quick.
want to say it was like Clippers, Warriors.
It was Clippers.
Clippers,
I had
Warriors,
5.
Mavericks,
I had
and Blazers. No?
Mavericks in there. I had Blazers in there. I had Warriors in there, and I'm missing a team. Clippers, Mavericks,
Warriors and Blazers. No.
Warriors and Blazers.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So
Okay.
I can see them. If you want to talk about how they get to number 5, I can see the Trailblazers imploding. I mentioned that in the last podcast where if the whole Dame Lillard thing goes south and they just end up imploding, I don't think that'd be a surprise to anybody. I mean, it would be a surprise, but I can see it happening. Mavericks, same thing. New coach, weird situation. Luka just maybe doesn't carry or whatever happens there. Kristaps gets injured again. Would that shock anybody? I don't think so. And then Clippers, like we talked about the red flag with the Clippers. Benny and I were pretty high on them, having them. I think we both had them at 5, right? Or you had them 4 and I had them 5. So they could definitely implode if Kawhi never comes back or Paul George gets hurt. They're one injury away from really just capsizing. And is there a big discrepancy between them and those other teams? I don't think so. Like if the Kings are as good as I think they are, like, and those other teams end up doing poorly, they could end up number 5. It's not crazy. They're not going to crack top 4. I'm not that.
You wanna laugh?
I want to laugh.
That was one of my hot takes too.
I knew it. Oh no.
It wasn't my hottest one.
Okay.
But,
Oh my god.
But
I knew that.
I didn't phrase it as Kings making playoffs. I said that Kings would make playoffs and win the first round.
Okay, I don't have them win the first round. I don't, because they probably be playing the Clippers or the Lakers.
I'm sinking myself way deeper
into
this.
What seed are you imagining there, Easy? In that,
I'm imagining like a 6.
By the way, Easy.
Okay, so 6,
we don't talk about our takes. Like we don't talk about our takes beforehand. So the fact that Easy had them, like that's okay. But yes, continue. Sorry.
So Easy, who's your? Let's just keep the hypothetical going. Like
just
I had, who's your 3rd?
I'm pretty sure I had Denver 3rd.
Oh yeah,
who you're high on.
I had to make the finals.
So I have Kings beating Denver in the playoffs.
Denver,
but yeah, no, I mean, this is what I'm thinking. This is my logic, okay?
Mm-hmm. Their roster is good.
It's not even just the roster. I think they make a trade.
Okay,
I'm not.
Yes, continue.
I'm not saying it's the Ben Simmons trade, but like I think they make a trade at some point where they're just frustrated with the roster they have and they just like go for it. By the terms of what Kings fan could go for it, which is making the playoffs for once. So that's what I mean by that. And I mean, there's just you look at the roster and you kind of wonder like what they need someone to put it together, and not even just the players. It needs to be like a coach, I guess. I don't even know, because
Yeah.
I look at the roster like you're saying. De'Aaron Fox, I wouldn't say he'll be most improved, but like he
No,
can make another jump.
I don't think any of these players will be most improved, but I think they have 3 guys who can make a jump. And like, would you be shocked if they're in like second or third in voting?
So
I wouldn't
like
be.
I would be if it's Buddy Hield, because Buddy Hield ain't gonna do more.
No,
than
I
what he's
didn't say
already
Buddy
done.
Hield, but it was De'Aaron, Tyrese, Halliburton, and Marvin Bagley. So it was
okay.
3 guys.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I thought you meant
Yeah.
Buddy Hield, and I'm like, that guy's
No,
not
Buddy Hield.
changing.
Not Buddy Hield. He's not changing. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I look at the roster. I like the roster.
Mhm.
Do I think again? We said if there was like a 1% chance that we believe in
1%,
it,
that's the threshold, man.
I'm putting my 1% in. Shout out
Mm-hmm.
Peta, Kings gang. We both have Kings jerseys. He
There we
believed in
go.
De'Aaron.
I'm
I
gonna have to
believe
join in that.
I mean, I unfortunately bought a Marvin Bagley jersey, but I'm gonna get used for it this year. I'm gonna get used for it.
He's gonna start. He's gonna start this year.
Shoot, if he doesn't start, I don't know who will.
Yeah.
Um,
Mo
but-
Harkless. I don't know.
So I guess that overlaps with my first take. I'll say Kings make playoffs and win in the first round. And in my hypothetical
spicy.
bracket,
Yeah.
they're beating the Denver Nuggets. I guess Michael Porter doesn't know how to play defense, and the Kings take advantage of that, and they win it. So
See, 'cause I was thinking, what if they end up playing like the Mavericks or something, and then they could probably win that. So that was kind of like
One
Or
of them
if
would
I
have
had
to
to
be top 4.
extend
I
it
can
out.
really see that. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
like I can't see either of them being in the
me
top
neither, but like,
four.
you know, I don't see them beating a Denver or anything. So I don't have them winning in the playoffs, but I do have them finishing top
Oh.
5. Like, I don't think it's crazy. On your note about having a coach or whatever,
Yeah.
that could, you know, they have, I think Dave Yeager's their coach, right?
No.
Luke Walton.
It's Luke Walton, dude.
Luke
Dave Yeager hasn't
Walton's
been there
Luke
for
Walton.
centuries.
Luke
bro.
Walton. So Luke Walton's their coach, and last year
Awful.
they had the best win percentage in the last, I think it was 5-6 seasons. So they're showing improvement. I mean, they still only won like 31 games or something. in a
They won
72
like
game
this.
season.
They had the same record
So-
in back-to-back years.
You know, they'd have to make, for my prediction to come true based off of like last year's standings, they'd have to make a jump of about 12 games better. So, you know, last year they won 31 games, and 5th was 42 wins. So they'd have to, well, it was tied for 42 wins. So they'd have to make a jump of like 12 or 11 or 12 games. But hey, I think it can happen. Like I said, you take those players, you put them in Seattle, you put them in wherever you want to put them, and I think people will like them. But because it's the Kings, no one has faith in that. So
It's just like last year they were very poor. They were solid offensively, but they were very poor defensive to unit, and they were a very poor rebounding team. I actually think like someone like Valanciunas might have been really good for them,
Yeah.
but they didn't make any moves for this roster that would kind of make me think that they're going to be competent defensively or competent as a rebounding unit.
I mean, defensively, Davion Mitchell makes
Yeah.
them
Maybe
a lot
Mitchell.
better.
Maybe Mitchell.
Mitchell makes
Maybe
them better
Mitchell.
at point
Yeah.
guard.
But
I don't
again, it's a rookie,
remember-
right? So it's
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
rookie,
but
that's
he's
the
like a
thing.
rookie that's like 23. Like he's not 18, he's not 19.
Yes,
Like he's built
correct.
in his like
Yeah.
physical attributes already. It's not like he's
Yeah.
gonna get much different. It's not like you're looking at like Giannis when he was 19 versus Giannis at 23.
Right.
Like
Okay, so they like defensive rating, they were 30th. Let's say with Mitchell, they go to 22 or something. Like I don't know.
And
Is
they
that
also
enough?
added Tristan
It'll be
Thompson, who
enough.
is not a great defender, but I think he can help a little bit. It's better than having, you know, who's their third big, Alex Len be your backup big. You know,
I
so-
don't know, man. I'm not ready to give up on Alex Len. I'm totally joking. There's no-
Well, I'm not ready to give up on Tristan Thompson, but we can talk about that later. So you know, and
Oh,
in terms of
man.
rebounding, he definitely helps. So
Yeah. So yeah, that
so yeah,
overlapped with
I
my
think that's my
take.
take. Yeah.
So
So you had them winning. That's kind of, I guess,
I had
the
Kings
difference
winning the
between-
first
Yeah.
round.
Yeah, the first round. Yeah, not everything, guys.
That'd be awesome. Though. That would be awesome.
I mean, it
I
would
would
be a
love
great
that. I would love
story.
that.
I would
Yeah.
probably fly if, mark my words, if Sacramento makes playoffs, I'm flying to Sacramento to watch a game.
Oh
Mark
my
my
God,
words.
I'm buying a jersey. I'm buying a jersey for sure.
I will fly there and I will watch the game at Sacramento.
Well,
And if
all
they're against the
four-
Warriors, I will go for
Yeah.
the Kings.
That's what I was gonna say. All 4 teams in that division, we would have them in the playoffs.
That's
Which
nuts.
I don't know how often that happens.
That would be
in
pretty
the
nice.
history. I'd have to look at that, but
That's crazy.
yeah, so that would be pretty nuts. So I guess since Easy and I gave one,
Yeah.
we'll kick it back to you, Benny. You can give us your second.
Okay, yeah. Let me just pull it up. My bad. I
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
ready.
you're good. You're fine.
I forgot. Oh yeah, it was a Paul George MVP season.
Dude, I had the same one.
No way,
Yeah,
bro.
I had the
No
same one.
way.
Oh, this is
All
moving
right.
fast. This is moving fast. So,
All right. So I'm
but
gonna
go
give
for it.
it.
What do
I'm
you?
gonna give
What
it.
do you have?
I'll give a couple reasons, Mike, and then if
Yeah,
you want, you can you
that sounds
can
good.
close it
Let's
out.
do it. Yeah,
All right. Let's tag team easy a little bit here.
tag team easy.
Oh God, here
So
we go.
Paul George last season missed, I would say, maybe like 20 games or something like that. The year before that was the COVID season, so he was a little short on that as well. But the year before that was the year in Oklahoma City where he got used to playing with Russell Westbrook and these guys, and he had that 28 and 8 and 5 season, and he was really good, and he was an MVP candidate for a really long time, mostly because due to his performances. Obviously, Russell's pretty good, but mainly due to him. Due to his performances, the Thunder were the top 2-3 seed for a very long time in the West. Towards the end of the season, they kind of fell off a little bit. Team wasn't playing as well together. Paul George was still playing well, but I can see that I could see a world where that kind of repeats itself. He's going to have the chance now. I think, in my opinion, I mentioned that in the last pod, he's going to have that chance now of just kind of being the sole guy, and he's going to get a whole bunch of shots, and he's a very efficient player, a very good scorer. He's a really good defender, two-way player. So that's going to count for something. He's going to get his team more opportunities to score on the other end. And just the impact that he's going to have with a full season, that season that I mentioned with Oklahoma City, he only missed 5 games. I could see it kind of take off, and he can have an MVP type season, at least statistically. Mike?
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. The opportunity thing is one of the big reasons why I believe in this take a little bit. It's really like the reason this is spicy for me is just because there are so many other players that I think would be ahead of Paul George.
And he's had kind of a negative reputation, right? The last
and he's been he has a reputation of being a choker and all that, but his regular seasons have been really strong. And even last year, he was doing really well. I mean, he averaged 23 points. He was shooting 41% from three. He shot 40% from three out of the last 4 seasons. He's gonna have a lot more volume. I think that his free throw attempts per game probably go up a little bit because he's sitting at around 4, just under 4. So I think that goes up with the ball in his hands. He'll be asked to create more on offense. If you look at their roster, their best shot creator is Reggie Jackson, I guess. So
you're saying that because Kawhi obviously isn't.
Yeah, because Kawhi's not going to be there for at least half the season. So he's going to be asked to do a lot with the ball in his hands, create more. I think he's a really great talent. We kind of forget that when he's behind Kawhi and the stops he's had at Oklahoma City. So I just think given the opportunity, I had them finishing 5 in my predictions. I think you had them finishing 4, right, Benny? So obviously you and I are high on them to begin with. So they could have the record for that to be in the talks for MVP, right? Because there's always kind of like you have to have a minimum amount of winning. So those are kind of my reasons why I think it's a possibility. Again, it's a hot take, but I like it for if you are gonna do a bet on any of these. I think that's one to bet on. So disclaimer. All right, Easy. What do you think?
Easy probably hates this one.
I mean, I don't hate it because it kind of defends my point that there's nobody on that roster that can do anything besides Paul George. So in a way, you're kind of supporting my claim that the Clippers are not a good enough team to do anything.
No, but I use that as an argument for having them above the Lakers. Actually, I could just see them playing better. I don't want to go back and forth with the Lakers thing, but it should. I just think it's easier to play with Paul George as the one ball handler, and everybody else knows their bro and they're decent role players, as opposed to like all these guys that were like Russell Westbrook, Carmelo, LeBron, Anthony Davis, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't think the roster.
I could just see it mesh better. But sorry, Easy. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We have different opinions about the Clippers roster, but I'll digress. I could see it happening, I guess, if they're top 4 in this hypothetical. But if Kawhi comes back and plays the second half of the season, Paul George ain't winning MVP. Like I'm just saying that very straightforward, because at the end of the day, it's about storyline and how you finish the season. And again, if Kawhi Leonard comes back, he might not be 100% healthy, but that is going to take away steam from Paul George and his MVP claim. So now if Kawhi's out for the season, hypothetically, we don't know anything about that guy's health. Super unpredictable. It's almost as unpredictable as the chance of Paul George being MVP. So I'd put more money on Paul George winning MVP than Kawhi playing the full season. But I digress. point being, the roster lends itself to him being an MVP. It makes sense in that sense. Again, it's just going to depend on how long he can carry a momentum and the type of the statistics that he's going to need to do it. Because at the end of the day, we still have Jokic coming back, which again, we talked about how he probably won't be MVP again, but he'll be top 5. We're talking about Giannis also being a defensive player of the year kind of candidate. So he'd have to go against Giannis as well. And then you have Luka too, that people love. So it's a lot that he's going to have to do to make it happen, or just for the people to have the perception of him as a top 3 MVP candidate, like he was with the Thunder. Like, it's going to take a lot for that to happen. A lot for it would have to go right for him, and a lot would have to go wrong for guys in the league. Like, there would have to be some sort of injuries. There would have to be some sort of like team that doesn't do as well as they should have. It's possible. It's not the worst hot take I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, if we go based off last year, he would have to beat just like the top 5 MVP guys that receive votes. He would have to beat Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Steph Curry, and Chris Paul.
He'd have to have a hell of a season.
Yeah,
he could.
Well, what about the other 4? You know, it's like
right. It's
gonna be tough.
Yeah,
it's tough. But that's what I'm saying. Like, for example, like if the Warriors are like again an 8th seed, I don't see Curry being a top 3 MVP candidate again. They did it because they felt bad for him. Let's be real. Like, again, he had a great season, but like his team was like what, 9th? Like,
yeah. No, and if I can see MPJ like cutting into the Jokic kind of hype if he indeed ascends. So obviously Jokic is still going to be one of the favorites, but if MPJ takes the next step, has the ball in his hands more, his numbers dwindle a little bit while MPJ's goes up. I can see that happening too. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a tall order, especially the Giannis one. Giannis is the one that like really, he's stalwart. I don't ever see him falling off, but that's why it's a hot take. And yeah, it's a take that I had too. So again, here we are overlapping. Pretty funny, but so I guess since me and Benny went,
jump to easy then.
We'll just jump to easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And funny enough, you kind of brought up as a joke the thing about the Kings will never win. Like if you put the players in like a different city, it'll make it happen.
Right.
One of my takes has to do with that, but not with the Kings. Minnesota will never make the playoffs if they don't move to Seattle.
Oh, I like it.
They'll
get them in Seattle. Get them in Seattle.
Put them in any city, but they'll never win in Minnesota. That city is
sorry,
cursed.
Timberwolves fans. Yeah,
Cursed.
we're sorry, Minnesota people.
Sorry, Umbe. I'm sorry, but they just can't win. Like, I have 2 decades of proof to do it. Like, they've made playoffs how many times? Twice. Like, they had Kevin Garnett. They made it to the conference finals, and they never sniffed the second round ever again. They had a lineup of Cat, Wiggins, Butler that should have made a second round, didn't make a second round. What? And you're gonna tell me that with the West the way it is now, they're gonna make it with Cat, D'Lo, who I don't even know how many games they've played together. What is it, like 10 in 2 seasons?
Yeah, barely any.
Like nothing.
They were so excited too that they got to be on the same team.
Yeah, it's his boy. That's Cat's boy.
Yeah, practices must be so lit together because they never actually play together.
Driving around Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Anthony Edwards, which like is the bright spot for me of that team. I could, again, if we're talking like the only way Minnesota, I mean, I don't know what it would take to get them into the playoffs. They can acquire as much talent as they want, but they never put it together. The way that I would resolve it, just trade D'Lo, get it done. D'Lo's not doing anything for you. If it works out for another team that has him, great. It wasn't going to work out with you. So like, let it go. I'm of the opinion, low key, that Philly and Minnie should talk of the Ben Simmons D'Lo trade, because at least for Philly, they get another guard that can like create off the dribble and shoot. Even though, they have Maxey already, it's still a different type of guy. And you know that he can like be a second guy on a team in a playoff team because he did it with the Nets without anybody else. And then Minnesota tries something different. They always want a facilitator. Cat doesn't have to, be as much of a guy in the post facilitating as much. And, maybe playing with Anthony Edwards helps him. I don't know. But the whole entire point of this take is that I don't think Minnesota wins anything anytime soon. That city is cursed. They need to move. That is it.
Yeah.
And it'll probably happen with Alex Rodriguez and the other guy that bought the team.
Mark
that
Lore.
They're going to move them. Yeah, they're going to move them. There's no way in my right mind that I'm thinking that they would want to buy a team for that amount of money and not raise the value significantly just by moving to any other city. Any
Move
other
to
city.
Vegas even. I would love to see an NBA team in Vegas.
You put that team anywhere else and it's going to raise in value. Think
Yeah,
about
pretty
it.
much. Get a new stadium. Yeah, they're just a snake pit there in Minnesota. Yeah.
They're just trapped. It's just like an endless cycle of like bad things. Like it's just never good. They ruined Ricky Rubio's career, Benny. What do you want me to tell you? Like,
Yeah,
Your boy.
They deserve the
Yeah.
worst.
They deserve the worst death penalty. Yeah, no, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty tragic.
I don't know if it's a hot take, but like, never winning ever again until they move.
Oh, but
You know,
is it never
was
making the playoffs or never winning?
Oh, I mean, are they winning if they don't make playoffs? I mean, like,
No,
that's
but
what I
like,
meant.
okay,
Like
okay.
winning games, they'll win games in the season.
Well, now like going to the playoffs. So you're saying they're not going to win a
Oh yeah,
championship?
they'll never make playoffs until they move to a different
Okay.
city.
Wow.
That's the take.
Yeah, they're going to be perpetually in the bottom 5. I don't see how they can't. So yeah, that's a good take. Actually, I have a
It's
take
not
that's
bad.
related to the Minnesota, but I think we'll go to Benny first to give us your third one, and then I'll go.
Oh, my third one was the Heat in the finals.
Let's
I hate
go.
you. That's not even
It's
a
not even
hot
a hot take, bro.
That's not even a hot take.
Literally, it's not even a hot take, bro.
That's like yeah, exactly. It's like
I
that's
hate
what I'm
you.
putting money on.
Let's go. I
I
love it.
Yeah, I mean, I could just
mean,
see the
yeah.
world where they get hot, they play well together. It seems like they already love each other. They looked really good in the preseason. Granted, this preseason game against the Hawks,
14 straight
but
points for Tyler Hero.
the team looks like it's meshing really well. Tyler Hero looks like he's going to take a big jump, which I wasn't expecting myself. PJ Tucker's fitting in one to his role. Kyle Lowry looks amazing already. He's gonna do a really good job for that team. That roster is gonna be elevated, and you could see the world where they get hot, kind of like in the bubble. Like you could see a world where maybe the Bucks have that championship slump, and then the world where the Nets maybe they have injuries, or maybe those three don't play very well together. They don't build chemistry because they didn't play much together last year. And in that case, the Heat capitalized and they can make the finals. I only mentioned those two teams because those are the two that I had ahead of the Heat in my standings. But yeah, if something happens to those two teams, the finals, the Eastern Conference could be Miami to lose.
I like the take, man.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
I love it. I love it. I love the culture, bro. I mean, could it happen any year that Eric Spoelstra is coaching the Heat with like a decent roster? It can happen. So fuck it, send it, bet on it. What are their odds? They're probably like plus 5 million. I don't know. Bet on it. I love it. Easy. What do you think?
If we're allowing takes for the Kings to make the playoffs and then make
but
the
that's
second
what makes
round,
this so lukewarm. It's not even hot. Like they're supposed like the expectation for
hot?
Heat fans.
Not hot
I don't think it's a
enough.
hot take. It's like
It's on. The Heat is on.
I mean, like the way I'm thinking
I'm
about
talking
it,
about
is that,
the Kings one.
oh, the Kings one is extremely hot. Like
yeah.
I feel like I'm on fire. I'm talking about the Heat making the finals. Like if they don't make finals, I consider that a disappointment.
No.
And no one's expecting them to make the finals.
Not
unless
over
you're
like the
Like-
Nets or like the
See, but that's
Or the
insane
Bucks.
to me. So then like
yeah.
like the way I'm perceiving this, right? You get Kyle
Yeah.
Lowry, you keep the same guys. You say that the core of the roster can make a finals because they did it once.
yeah
And you could call it the bubble, you could call it whatever.
yeah.
If you're a fan of this team, there is no reason why you should not be assuming that this is not championship or bust. Like if you're saying this is championship or bust, you shouldn't be saying that there is no chance to beat the Bucks and Nets unless those guys have like injuries. Like you need to believe in this team.
Right.
You're either in or you're out. Like
No,
you get me?
Yeah. As a fan of the team, as you mentioned, I think maybe Mike agrees with me. Yeah, I agree with you, Easy. This roster is good enough to make the finals in almost any other season. I don't know that the Nets are going to have the issues that I mentioned for this hypothetical to work. They could make the conference finals. I would be disappointed, for example, if we lost in the second round. I think this team is better than that. But if for us to make the NBA finals, if I look at it objectively, right, and I compare let's just say the Nets, I compare the Heat to the Nets. I just gotta assume that the Nets are gonna win that.
Yeah, so I had the Heat fourth.
It's not a hot take to your point, Easy. It's just one that I don't see happening, but I would like to see happen is more what it is.
Well, yeah, I'd love to see it happen, but I have the Heat fourth on my rankings for next season in the East. So I don't expect them to be better than the Nets. Of course, you guys know how I am with Philly, the Bucks. I see them more in that Boston, Atlanta tier of teams. It's like it's really them three competing for 4 and 5 in my opinion. But I guess 3 through 5. But I don't really have the expectation of them making the finals. If they make the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that's a win. So I don't have that expectation. I think you said that like it'd be a disappointment if they didn't make the finals. But my thing is like this year, I just don't expect it to happen. I think it'd be a disappointment if they never made the finals over the next whatever it is 3 years that we have like Lowry, per se. It's something like in that window.
Yeah.
But this year, I don't see it happening.
I'm just like, I'm of the opinion that it's not going to get easier for them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Mainly because
think
Lowry's age and things like that.
right.
Jimmy
Like,
Butler.
it's not going to get easier for the Heat because they don't have any money left now, unless they do trades, which are trading their best 4 guys right now. If we're being honest, they're going to have to commit money to Tyler Hero in the next 2 years, after 2 years, or even before that, to already get an extension going if they want to keep him.
Get on the cheap. Yeah.
Right. So I'm of the opinion that you need to make finals now, because if you don't make finals now, you're not going to make finals in the next 2 years. Bucks team isn't going anywhere. They're all under contract. Who knows what happens with the Nets? I'm not going to say that I know what happens to James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving in 2 years, but Atlanta's going to get better because they're all young and they're all under contract. I'm at this point where like, you're an aging team. This is your window. You cannot afford to have a mentality of like, we're not making finals because of the Nets. Like, you need to think you're going to win.
I agree. I feel like if this was 2 years ago, I'd probably have the exact same take as you did, which is, the season we made the finals. That season, I had the same points where I felt like this was our year. The Sixers are only going to get better. Obviously, we'll see where that goes. But, Milwaukee Bucks, the Nets were on the horizon. Actually, I don't know if KD had already gone to the Nets at that point. I don't remember. You guys have to remind me. I think he did it. They sat out.
Yeah, he
year.
sat out the first
Yeah,
year.
he sat out.
So the Nets were on the horizon. Boston was ascending. So 2 years ago, I felt like that was the season, make or break, with Jimmy Butler, that we had to make the finals, and we did. But I just, if you're telling me that's the only time in the next 4 years that we made the finals, that would not be surprising to me at all. And I don't expect us to be making the finals with this roster over the next 3 years. Are there moves they can make? Is it possible that they can go on a run? For sure. I just, the top of the East is stacked. Giannis isn't going anywhere. That's where I'm going anywhere. So we'll see. But it definitely fits the theme of this podcast, though. And do I want it to happen? Absolutely. And if it does happen, I'm gonna fucking be driving that bandwagon. So forget about my take right now. But
it happens, I'm moving out of Miami.
I love the take, bro.
Don't you got to go catch a game in Sacramento around this time?
Yeah, Sacramento Heat finals.
to-
Sacramento Heat finals. We're running it.
But literally, bro, I love the take. So I guess I'll move on to my take if we're done on the Heat pot. All right, cool. So my last take, which is more of like, I guess it's a fantasy related take, but I'm gonna do it in the context of like most improved player, because I had this guy on my fantasy team, I think last year, and I loved it. So Naz Reid, I think for most improved, this is like super like out of left field.
Wow, what is this?
So Naz Reid, let me pull.
Benny, do you know who he is?
I don't even know who he is.
Oh,
I was literally gonna say I don't even know who he is.
Wait, but easy, you know who Naz Reid is.
Oh, I know who Naz Reid is, but I know
Hell
that
yeah,
I
you
know
know
Benny's like
Daddy.
basketball knowledge
spell this
is
guy's
not
name?
like
NAZ?
player
I'm
deep.
not
He's
a big fan of
only
you guys.
NAZREID. All right, learn the name because he's gonna win most improved. But
Good God.
I'm not even gonna like have a. I'm not even
An
gonna answer
opinion?
like Mike's. Yeah, I'm not even gonna, because I just found out who this guy is. So I'll believe
yeah,
Mike.
they were gonna pretend. But I mean, okay, so basically the genesis of this take is that I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I think there was a period of time, Easy, you probably remember better than I will, where I think Cat was out and this guy was starting for whatever reason. I don't
he
remember
was
who else
actually
was
doing
out.
really well. I'm trying to
He was
remember
doing
in my league.
amazingly well.
Was it Eddie that had him? I'm not sure, but I know he was doing really well.
And for you guys know this, but I don't think I've mentioned it on the podcast. But last year I was in like a 20-team keeper league. It was like ridiculous. So obviously like you're fishing bottom barrel for guys who can just get you a double-double, right? That's like a huge win, especially if you're doing like categories or just like point scoring. but he's the guy that I had on my roster, and I had him at the perfect time because Cat was out and he started, and he was getting like I wish I had the game splits in front of me for those games, but he was doing well. I mean, this is a guy who's shooting 52% from the field last year, albeit 20 minutes a game, 35% from three. He averaged 11 and total 11 points and 4.5 rebounds, so not great, but I don't know, man. Just looking at those splits last year, remembering on how good he was for my fantasy team, like, why not Nas Reed? Why not be most improved? He's only 22. He was born in 1999, so now I feel really old. But he's only 22.
Oh my God, he's younger than us. Christ.
Yeah, he's younger than us. He's a 6'9", 260 center, power forward. Natural position, I guess, is center. So he's undersized center. Could he get up on the depth chart? I don't even know who their backup big is. I think he might be.
No, I think he'd be the backup. I think he'd be
right. Yeah.
be
So
him.
he's gonna get more than 20 minutes a game just based off what he did last year. And I think he can do really well. I think he's like a super dark horse for most improved. Most improved to me is kind of like just like super random this year. I'm not like in love with anybody. I think I picked Triple J for my award. You guys picked MPJ. So it can be anybody, and why not Nas Reed? Go for it. I'm gonna pick you probably with my last pick in my fantasy league this year, but why not be? Anyway, so that was my last take.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I love it.
The pride of Roselle Catholic High School in New Jersey. Nickname on Basketball Reference, Big Jelly.
Big
6'9",
Jelly.
Was he even drafted?
264. What's up?
Was he
an undrafted player?
Ooh,
I think he was. Let's find out. I really don't know. He was the number 18 recruit coming out of high school. Went to LSU. I remember the games that he was in. He had some really nice splits. That I'm looking at right here. He had a series of games where he had like, out of 10 games, he had 7 games in double digits. His rebound numbers were around 7 during that streak.
Is this for LSU or Minnesota?
No, this is for Minnesota, actually. He had a game of 29.
Yeah. This is going to be his third season in the league.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, I have this thing where like big men will never win most improved because everyone hates big men when it comes to the awards. Unless it's defensive player of the year, then it's the only option. But he definitely is going to make a jump, I think. I think
for sure make a jump. He's going to get more minutes. You're right. He did have a game with 29 and 9. He had another game with 23, I'm seeing. So I mean,
amount of games.
He has like a good amount of games with 20 points and a couple 17 and up. So, I love it. Just a name to look out for. If you want to put like $100 on it, if you have that cash to burn, you could probably win like $1 million. I don't know what the odds are, but I don't know math. But yeah, so that's why. Fine, not.
He did go undrafted, by the way. I was seeing somebody on Reddit complaining how did this guy go undrafted.
That's crazy.
Hey man, if Reddit knows, the media knows. All right. So yeah, easy. Why don't you wrap us up here on our flaming hot takes? Why don't you give us your third?
Dear God. Okay. Where do I start? I know this isn't gonna happen. Let me just make that disclaimer. But there is that 1% of me that wants to believe it will. Josh Giddy is going to be Rookie of the Year.
Ooh, see, okay, you were texting about Josh Giddy yesterday.
And Josh Giddy is not only going to be Rookie of the Year, in 3 years, he is going to be an All-Star.
Wow, you're really high on that guy.
You're very high. Where did he get drafted? Like, was he top?
He was drafted 6.
14? He was drafted 6.
No,
okay, yeah, so he was. Yeah.
This is a project player. I know he's a project player.
He has a nice shot. He has a very nice shot.
I know I'm going to be wrong. I'm already saying it. I'm wrong. But if I hit on this, my God. So
remind me, I think you had him winning Rookie of the Year and being All-Star in 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
Red Thunder, by the way.
Yeah.
So Australia, he was averaging 11, 7, and 7. 1 steal a game. His shooting percentage not too hot. 3-point shooting not too hot. But neither was LaMelo's. And look how he turned out in the first year. I'm not saying he's LaMelo Ball either. But I saw him on the court in preseason, and I fell in love with him. He's got an ability to look around the court, see open guys. He can navigate really well. What I love is that this guy is a 6'8", 210 point guard.
Yeah, he does have good size.
He's got great measurables. The issue for him isn't even like offensively necessarily in terms of playmaking. Like a shot will come. He has form. His free throw percentage is a 70. So I'm inclined to believe he'll get better as a shooter.
Yeah, that's why I say he has a shot because his form looks fine. Like I think he just
Right.
needs to work on little things.
I think he's gonna get the minutes he needs in OKC to actually develop into that. They just have a reputation of developing guys. I don't know how, but they do. And then they end up trading them, but that's besides the point. I don't know. I just really like the measurables. He moves really well on a court. He's going to have bad games. There is no doubt in my mind that he's going to get some really bad games. But, you know, maybe not so much the rookie of the year I'm believing in, but I am believing he'll be more of an all-star in 3 years than the rookie of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's wild.
I'm also under the impression that Shai Gilgeous won't be with the Thunder in 3 years and that he'll have to, you know, take the reins because they're going to trade Shai Gilgeous.
But he can play with SGA. I think he could. I really do. His size allows him to be on the court.
Yeah.
You know, can he play defense? Can he do those other things? Who knows? But we'll see.
Right. I'm just inclined to believe that he's just like a do-it-all guy, and we've seen the reputation for do-it-all guys making all-star teams. It's never just like you know, they got to be able to do a lot, and he has the potential to do all of it. The other hot take I have, which might be a little bit better because we're on rookies anyways. Alperen Sengun, I think that's how you say his name, center for the Rockets.
Yes.
He is looking like a guy who knows how to play in the paint, and I wasn't expecting that.
But what's your take for him?
My take is that he'll also be an all-star in 3 years.
Okay.
That is my take. Prepare yourselves.
Don't the Rockets still have Christian Wood?
Yeah, but who cares about Christian Wood?
I mean, you know, they paid him like 39 million or something.
Doesn't he only have like 2 years left in that contract though?
Yeah, I think it was just a 3-year deal. Yeah. So yeah,
and he doesn't play center. I mean, Sengun plays he played center in Turkey, and the guy was the Turkish league MVP. He was averaging, I'm pretty sure, 19
like 18
points
or
a game.
something.
Yeah, he's super young. He was averaging 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, almost 2 blocks a game, 1 steal a game. He was shooting 64% from the field. The 3-point shot obviously is not good, but he's not a 3-point shooter anyways. And the free throw percentage was an 81%. So he's a skilled big man. And at least in today's league for big men, you need to have some sort of offensive component or like some sort of like offensive IQ. You can't just be like going up for baskets and getting blocked immediately or like passing it over a guy's head out of bounds.
You need to have skill. Yeah. You know,
right.
Skill.
Like he has the intelligence already to be a really good center. And I think we're going to see that during the season. And yeah, I like both of those rookies. I'm going to be wrong about Giddy. I know I'm going to be wrong about Giddy, but Sengun is actually like not bad. Like I really do think he'll be a decent center. I'm not saying like, you know, star player, but you know, why not bet on a guy to be an all-star in 3 years? Like,
why not, man? We love that.
Are we pretty high on this Houston team then?
Oh, I'm not high on this Houston team at all. I just think they're going to get minutes.
They're going to have like a
we
couple...
talked about, we like Jalen Green and we talked about Kevin Porter and dudes like that.
This year I'm not high on them, but long term, I think they can have a good future.
Right, I don't think that they're going to be, I don't think they'll be competitive, but I don't think they'll be trash for a long time. Like in terms of like years.
I see them rebounding. Absolutely. I see them rebounding for sure. And, you know, I think this year is probably just going to have a lot of like empty stats guys, but it'll be fun to watch. League Pass guys, right?
I cannot wait to buy League Pass and watch those guys.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get League Pass too. You kind of sold me on it.
I'm hyped.
But yeah, I like, hold on. I'm getting like, okay, there we go. Yeah, so I like the takes we have. I think that kind of does it for our hot takes. So you got 9 hot takes to go for, ladies and gentlemen. So, you know, if you want to bet on any of those, you know, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying you probably win a lot of money if they hit. So I guess we'll move on. Do a little bit.
Which one do you guys think? Which one? Do you guys think was the worst one?
What was the worst one?
For me, it was easy with the Kings in the second round.
Honestly, I was gonna say mine, but then I remembered, that easy had them winning. So yeah, I'll probably go with easy.
The Kings are gonna expose Jokic. Okay, we're gonna finally figure out what he can do.
Wow,
I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah,
no one else could, but the mighty Sacramento Kings.
It's so crazy that you and I both had the Kings.
I've been on Kings gang for like a year and a half.
I mean, yeah. So that's kind of when I picked that. When I had that pick, I kind of envisioned maybe you'd have.
Yeah, I was more surprised that you had it, Mike, as opposed to easy.
Yeah, I was surprised about that.
Damn. It's because we've been shitting on them the past 2 like podcasts. And then Benny, we both had Paul George for MVP, which I feel like was retaliation against Easy for being
100%. So I think that's the worst take, honestly. I think
So
there's a
fun.
higher chance of Josh Giddy being an all-star than Paul George winning MVP.
Wow.
Damn.
Totally
I'll
joking.
take that bet.
Totally joking.
Yeah. Clipped.
But so yeah, some pretty interesting takes. It's kind of crazy, low key on the same wavelength with you guys, but that's fun. So we'll move on to our next segment idea. I think we could probably do like a good 10, 12 minutes on this.
Yeah, we can be quick.
Yeah.
So we'll do players that we have not given up on yet. So easy, you'd probably be better at explaining like this segment. So why don't you go ahead and intro?
Yeah. So there's like multiple ways that we can like perceive this. It could be guys that you haven't given up on yet that you know that they're not gonna like get better, but you just can't let go of them. Or you can perceive it as guys you haven't given up on yet, but still have the potential to like become great or like become above what they're doing right now. I took it personally as guys that I know they're not going to get better, but I just can't let go of the potential that we once saw in them. I don't know how you guys took this exercise, but that's how I took it.
No, I agree. That's a great way to explain it. So
Yeah.
I guess that being said, Easy, why don't you give us? I guess you can
Yeah.
go give us. Give us how many names you have? Like 2 or 3?
I got two.
Let's say, why don't you give them both to us, then we can
All right.
discuss. Yeah.
This one I have talked about for years. Probably on one of our episodes too, as a joke in passing. Josh Giddy. I'm totally joking.
Yeah.
Jeff Green is my first choice. And my second choice was Jabari Parker. So Jeff Green, like, poor guy. Like, this guy was really on the way to like having some potential in terms of, you know, being able to be a scorer, rebounder, defender. And then he had the heart surgery, and then he kind of slowed down a bit, kind of stopped the momentum, never really hit his stride necessarily. I also think moving from team to team didn't help him at all either. I'm not saying he moved a lot in the beginning of his career, but he was on some not the greatest teams in the world. OKC, he was there in the beginning, but then got traded to Boston. Those Boston teams were the ones that had just traded KG and Paul Pierce, so they weren't good for a bit. It was really the Rondo Celtics that he was on. Gets traded to Memphis. Not a bad team in 2014, 2015, but he's not exactly being relied upon to be like a star player. So, I mean, I just think that his development didn't happen the way it should have. I think we got the worst version of his career personally. And yeah, that was my first pick. And then with Jabari Parker, this guy was a bucket, bro. This guy was a bucket.
In college,
Coming out of high school,
he was a fucking bucket, dude.
No, in high school, people were calling him like a number 1 pick already. So, I mean, there was a season that he had with Milwaukee that he was averaging 20.6 rebounds. And that was on 50 games, not 82. But like, you look at his shooting percentages, at least from the field goal percentage, they're all at 48 to 50. His lowest season was 47. So like, clearly this man doesn't have a problem scoring. I think the injuries didn't help his development defensively as a wing player who has to go against athletic guys. In terms of the 3-point percentage, not great at all. But I think it got worse because of the injuries. Like, no exaggeration. Like, I really think the injuries put a hamper on his career. But I'm not ready to give up on these guys yet. I saw Jeff Green in the playoffs with the Brooklyn Nets. He had that one game where
he's in a great role, man.
He was just like insane. I think he made like 27 points, and he was like the second best player for KD. And I'm pretty sure did they win that? I don't even know if they won the game, but I remember he was just going off, and I was just like, this is what Jeff Green should have been.
I really like him for Denver now. I think he'll do very well there.
Yeah,
exactly. He's in a perfect situation again, just like last year. So I agree. I'm on the Jeff Green hype train. You know that. I just remember him having that heart surgery, and I think ESPN did a story about it like maybe 5 years ago or whenever it was, 6 years ago maybe. So I love Jeff Green. Do you have any? And your other was Jabari Parker, right?
Yeah, Jabari Parker.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that really. Benny, did you have anything to add before we move on?
No, I like them.
Okay, cool. So Benny, why don't you go ahead and give your guys, and then we can talk about it.
Sure. My guys are more guys that are still really young, but we haven't seen anywhere near what we thought, at least maybe what I thought. Maybe I'm alone here on what they could have been. And those two players are KZ Akpala and Lonnie Walker.
Ooh, Okay.
What did you think KZ Akpala was gonna be?
Yeah, KZ.
That's what I want to know. The Lonnie Walker one, I'm
I
cool with.
yeah, I bought into the KZ Kool-Aid like a couple years ago, and
Ooh.
and last year, like after another season of him not doing jack, I was like, forget it. I'm I'm totally lost on this guy. I saw him play in preseason, and I'm just not impressed. But okay, what do you see in KZ that you still believe in, Benny? And then we can talk about.
A lot of the two things overlap here. The only thing that maybe wouldn't is the weight. KZ's really thin, and I saw him playing I guess a couple nights ago for the Heat against the Hawks. He played well, but he still looks too thin, at least for me, to play the 3 or the 4. Which Lonnie wasn't. Lonnie came in, I think, at over 200 pounds already. But either way, I will start with KZ Akpala. Insane measurables to be a really good defender in the NBA. The problem with him, and then the problem with Lonnie as well, is that they both came in really raw. KZ is going into year 3. I think Lonnie's going into year 4.
Yeah.
But I see decent handles, I think, for a player his size. I just don't think he gets enough opportunity. Good handles for his size, as I mentioned. He's a good shooter, at least in college. And when he gets the opportunity in the league, he does that as well. He has really good size. I think he has like a 7'2" wingspan or something ridiculous. He's a really good defender. It's just that whole thing of that he's really raw, at least his first 2 seasons when we barely see him play. And he kind of looks a little bit the game moves too fast for him. I think that's the biggest problem for him. The game moves too quick for him, at least in the limited time that we've seen him. But I think his measurables are really, really good. And he does have a good defensive IQ that added when he can use his body better will make him a really solid role player. I don't see him as a starter anymore, but I do see him as he could be a really good, on a team that needed a stretch for last year for the Heat. I thought maybe he can crack that, but no, he just wasn't ready last year. I still see him I could see him being a really good 3-and-D player. That's just what I see him as. As for Lonnie, as like his potential, obviously. Right. As for Lonnie Walker, similar things, really long wingspan. He's a good defender. Maybe not a shooter like KZ is, but also just really raw, extremely athletic player. And he has been getting good opportunity in San Antonio. I think he boosted up to like maybe almost 30 minutes a game. It didn't give much as far as the points per game production, but you could see that he does belong in the NBA. I don't think that maybe people have given up on him being a good player. I think most people will see him as a good player. I just think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about this guy, maybe because of the situation that he's in. Whereas I think if we just wait a little bit more on this guy, he's going to start to pop off more on our screens, and he'll be regarded much better than what he is. He'll be remembered.
Yeah, I think I remember Lonnie in college, and I remember even watching. There's like a game against Boston College that he hit like a last second 3, and it was incredible. Yeah. I was there for it. So I love Lonnie, and in the NBA, I think you're right. Like he's super athletic. He is definitely a player that I see like okay, he is an NBA player, which I just don't see for KZ, which is why I'm low on him. But for Lonnie, I definitely see it, and like he's an above the rim type of player. His shot has kind of been super streaky. So, which is why he's not getting that production, and honestly, probably why he's not getting as many minutes. And yeah, he needs to work on his defense, but I do see him in the long run getting better at defense, and hopefully getting a better shot. But I think he's definitely a guy that I see the talent is there. If you watch him play, he's a very athletic, above the rim type of player. So I really like it. What do you see in Lonnie,
UZ? In Lonnie, I agree with you. I think the problem that Lonnie faced, which is what all young players will face if they go to the Spurs, is that team doesn't have a direction. There's not like back then we saw role players in San Antonio as like, oh wow, like they really know how to contribute to a team and win. And that's why they worked so well, because they were already defining that role. And when they went to their next team, that was their role. They didn't have to like become anything beyond that. Now you don't have Tim Duncan, you don't have Ginobili, you don't have Parker, you don't have Kawhi. What happens? Your team has no identity. Your team is doing the same thing that it's been doing for 10, 15 years. And there's no consistency. With Lonnie Walker, he was a starter for 38 games and the other half he wasn't. And that might be due to injuries with DeJounte and Derek White. I get it, but how are you going to develop as a player if everyone on the team needs to develop as a player too? Like, I don't see teams where it's all young guys that working out, especially if there's not like a young guy that's the star player. You get me? Like, for example, like you had Russell Westbrook and KD when they were young, you knew they were going to be the star players eventually. In San Antonio, there is no indication who's going to be a star player. You can tell me DeJounte Murray's a great player. He is, but he's not, he shouldn't be your best player on your team. He shouldn't even be your second best player, if we're being honest. So I think Lonnie's been just a victim of the environment he's in. And then also he's just an inconsistent shooter, like you said. There were times in this. I remember at the beginning of the season he was doing great. I even traded him in fantasy for Kevin Love. Shout out Kevin Love.
What a steal!
Well, I mean, he wasn't even good, but then he had that one game during the playoffs in our league. But I digress.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, I definitely see a place where Lonnie fits in the league. Absolutely. I want to go back to KZ Akpala. You guys were drinking that Miami Heat Kool-Aid that every fan drinks when they draft anybody.
I saw the light. I'm no longer drinking that Kool-Aid.
My God. Yeah, as a defender, and the measurables are great. But the second they traded, I think it was like 3 second-round picks for this guy, I knew he was a bust. I knew he was going to be a bust because they drafted him the same year that they took Bol and they traded Bol for money. So it's just one of those classic, like, I don't know besides the measurables what you saw in him. He's not a good shooter. I don't know.
He was in college. That's what I was hoping would translate.
So, for example, in 37 games with the Heat, he shot 24% from three, 37 from the field last season. And then in G League, I went as far as G League for this. He averaged 11 points. Defense was good, like we said. His shooting, 36 from the field, 28% from three.
Yeah.
Like, this guy, like, to me, I don't think he was ever going to be anything great. Just for the simple reason that you traded 3 second-round picks for this guy and you let Bol get traded for cash. Like, I already knew the standard was set for him, that it was just going to be a problem. I do like the Lonnie Walker one. I think he'll be much better once he finds a different team, if he does find a different team.
I think KZ's the one that needs a different team. I think as long as he's on the Heat, they're not going to use this guy because this is a win now team and they're not going to take a chance playing KZ. At least they'll probably play him whatever they played him last year. Whereas maybe on like a poor team, he'll probably get more opportunity. But
yeah, no, he needs to play for the Guangzhou Tigers because he's not going to be in the league.
Guangzhou Tigers. Guangzhou Tiger All-Star. Yeah.
Honestly, if there was a loan system like in soccer, I'd be down for that. Send him to Guangzhou.
Yeah.
Sure. Send him to Australia.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because I know Umbe has been talking about how like soccer always has that. He's a huge soccer fan. So he's always like, yeah, why doesn't the NBA have this?
I mentioned that as well.
Yeah. And like the more you think about it, the more they should. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, NBA is becoming more and more like soccer now, especially with the G League and their minors. So I can see it happening. He's a guy who would definitely benefit. So I'll move on to one guy that I had. I'll just stick to one guy because, you know, I was going to say Tristan Thompson, but to be honest, I don't really believe in him. I just think he's okay. But somebody who I think could be decent in like 2 or 3 years and kind of have a bounce back is Markelle Fultz. So he's a guy who I think going to Orlando was a good thing for him in his career overall. At least getting out of I'll say getting out of Philadelphia was a good thing for him. I don't know if going to Orlando was the best situation, but you know, he has a torn ACL from, you know, I think earlier this year.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to see him. Yeah, we're not going to see him for a little while. And before that, he was dealing with that weird, I don't know what it was, like shoulder, elbow injury, whatever the hell he had going on with the shot. But it seemed like he was getting over that in Orlando. And I felt like he had good moments there where the pressure was off of him. If you had the yips or whatever, you know, he was in a situation where he no longer needed to feel that pressure. And he was doing very well. And, you know, coming out of college, I remember that draft, he's somebody that I really liked. His shot was amazing. I thought he had good vision. He has good size. Like all the measurables and all that are there for him. And I think the talent is there. He's just had a really like unfortunate road. It's almost kind of like what you say, Easy. I think it's about Ricky Rubio, where it's like if you do his career over 10 times, it's like it can come out better. I think with Markelle Fultz, if you do his career 10 times, like this is probably amongst the worst outcomes, if not the worst.
It's gotta be the worst.
Yeah. So I think, you know, he's a guy that I can see almost kind of like obviously not as good as Derrick Rose, but almost like in like a Derrick Rose type of way where he's kind of like is in obscurity, bouncing from team to team for a little while, and then is able to like hit his stride as he ages. I don't know how old he is. He's probably not even 23 yet.
He's
maybe
23, but like he's 23 and a
Yeah.
half. It's not like he's turning
Yeah, so
24 soon.
he's a baby, and this is like his 4th year in the NBA or something. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So he's somebody who I can see getting a bounce back later, like kind of having a renaissance later on in his career. I don't think it's gonna happen this year. But I'm definitely buying up all the Markelle Fultz stock, that I can, as it's just really low right now. So he's a guy that I'm rooting for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's low. He had a pretty good reputation, and then he got hurt, unfortunately. I think it was definitely low. Like, I guess that last year in Philly where he looked really bad, and then when he got traded, he was
100%.
pretty solid. Yeah.
Yeah. And he started the season well, like you said. He only played 8 games, and like the numbers don't show it. But in his first 3 games, he had like 15, 5, and 4.
Yeah.
Next game he had 21, 4, and 7. Following game 26, 2, and 2. So like, we're not asking him to be a star player, but like he was definitely showing signs of like getting better.
Yeah.
And even in the season before that, he was averaging 12, 3, and 5. Like that as a point guard, we're not saying he's a star, maybe not even a starter, but like he could definitely be a role player on your team that provides some athleticism and some juice.
Absolutely. And like I said, without that pressure of being such a high pick and being in Philly, he's in a better situation. Like, I think that's going to help him a lot in the long term. And I think his perspective, like his media perspective, is a little skewed because of that time in Philadelphia, which is kind of why, he's kind of, I have him in this conversation anyways. So I think he'll be able to. He'll never be. I mean, I don't see him as being like worthy of number 3, number 2, whatever he's picked at. But he
was
can
number
definitely
1.
be. Okay,
Yeah.
number 1. There you go. So he can definitely be, a useful NBA player, a starter for a lot of teams down the line. I could see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell for him.
Absolutely.
And
for all
for
these guys.
Lonnie Walker. I don't know
Yeah.
about KZ, but
I don't know about KZ.
But
KZ may be
definitely-
Guangzhou, China, or whatever he said.
Guangzhou, China, he might pop off. I don't know.
I'll get his shirt if he goes there.
Oh, hell yeah. So you got to buy a Guangzhou Tiger shirt. I got to buy a Kings jersey. And Easy's got to buy me plane tickets to Sacramento for later this year. So,
Hi, bro. That Sacramento
Well,
Heat
Ryan,
final is going to be crazy.
Sac squad right out. But I think that does it for us. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It was a lot of fun. Lots to keep an eye on as we get closer to the season starting. I'm sure we'll reference these takes later on this year and see just how crazy they were, or if they were spot on. Like I said, you can win a lot of money, but listen to the disclaimer at the beginning of the podcast. Don't bet on anything. So I think that does it for us. Make sure to catch us on Instagram and YouTube, and listen to our preview pods, and we'll keep going here. We'll keep you updated.